Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here. It's time for another Transformers review, and we're going to take a look at a couple of Decepticon cassettes. These were ironically the last two cassettes to be released in the American line. We have here Beastbox and Squawktalk. They would be released in 1989, and they would only be on the shelves in 1989. They would be discontinued for 1990, and we would not really get replacements for them. As stated earlier, these guys would be the last Decepticon cassettes to be released, at least in the United States and probably in Europe as well. I'm not sure if they were still if they made others in Japan after these guys or not. There were considerably more cassette figures released in Japan that we never got to see over here in the States. But these two here are an interesting pair, even though they came out many years after Soundwave had been discontinued. So let's take a look at them individually. First up, we'll take a look at Beastbox, the King Kong wannabe. Since, as you can see, he sort of resembles a robotic gorilla. Although he looks a little weird like that. For articulation, he has a fair amount going for him for a cassette guy. We can rock his head up and down. He can rotate his arms at the shoulders, although his arms do rotate better if he doesn't have his guns mounted. Let's see if we can get one of them to pop off here. There we go. His arms can rotate all the way around if he doesn't have his guns in place. And of course down here on his feet can move at the ankles. Or they can also be spread aside like so. And of course to transform Beastbox we'll need to remove both guns. We'll take a moment here and we'll show you one of them. Both of his guns are exactly the same. Beastbox's guns are described as a pair of air compression cannons. And as you can see, they are coated in silver chrome, so they will be prone to wear. About the only possible point of breakage is back here on the fins. But you shouldn't have to worry about them too much. Okay, to transform Beastbox, we'll fold his head down. We'll fold his fists into his arms. We'll slide his shoulder pieces down. And also slide his arms up, like so. And then fold them down to the sides. Make sure his feet are folded flat. And then spread his legs out, like so. And then we turn him around. And there he is, as an audio cassette. It would have been fun if you was lucky enough to still have Soundwave at that time. I never had Soundwave growing up as a child, but these guys were always cheap, so my parents would pick them up. Plus, of course, since they came in a 2-pack and I only had a little brother, that was an easy way to solve a toy battle. We could each have one. And that's Beastbox. Of course, before we talk about Squawktalk, we should talk a little bit about what Beastbox is. Aside from being a gorilla, Beastbox is an interrogator, so he was a replacement for Vortex, who in turn was a replacement for Laserbeak. However, Beastbox is a step backwards in interrogation from both characters. While Laserbeak never could get much out of anybody because he was a coward, Beastbox is more violent and has no patience. Whenever he would get involved in interrogating a prisoner that refused to give up information, Beastbox would resort to his fists to start making them talk. The only problem is Beastbox could not control his fury, and the prisoner would wind up looking like he suffered a brutality from Mortal Kombat, and thus not give up any real solid information. So, Beastbox as an interrogator is kind of useless. Now, moving alongside to his partner here. This is Squawktalk. Squawktalk's function is as a translator, so he has a rather unique function among the Decepticons. He knows quite a few languages across the galaxy, and he likes to hear the sounds of language. So he is frequently found talking, and talking, and talking. In fact, he talks so much that many of the other Decepticons have threatened him with considerable levels of violence in the vain hopes of shutting him up. As you can see, Squawktalk here is done up to resemble a bird. He does a better job of it than Laserbeak and Buzzsaw did, as he even has some details that are done up to sort of resemble feathers. At any rate, what sort of articulation does he have? Well, we can raise his head up at the neck. Just unfortunately, he lacks the other joint that Laserbeak and Buzzsaw had, so he can only look in the one direction. His wings can fold back and forth like so. Plus, there is a joint at the elbow of his wings that does allow the wings to rotate. Why you would want to do that, I do not know. But at any rate, that's his articulation. We'll take a look at his loose pieces right now, since we got to remove them to transform him. These are his guns, which are described as high-decibel sonic boomers. He has a right-hand one and a left-handed one, as they both only have fins on the one side and just a hole on the other side. And of course, like Beastboxes, the guns are chrome, so you will have to keep an eye out for chromeware. Now, to transform Squawktalk, we start by folding his head back into this hole in his back, and flip his tail feathers up to cover it. His wings can be folded in at the sides, like so. You fold in the wingtips. We'll turn him over. We'll fold his feet into the side. Then we can connect the wings in solidly. And then we fold these little tabs down. And turn him over, and there we go. He's also an audio cassette. Of course, by now, these were being painted on instead of stickers like the older toys had, so it does look a lot better. You just have to worry about any scratches to the paint. And there is Squawktalk. Now, before we move on to the tech specs, we've got an added bonus here. As you'll see, neither of them have their weapons on right now. These guys actually had another mode. They can be combined into a larger robot. We'll start by taking Squawktalk here. You'll fold the head inside. You'll fold the tail feathers in. You'll fold in the wing tips, like so, but instead this time you're going to bring the wings downward, like so, and then rotate the wings so that the wingtips come inside. Then we're going to fold the feet straight out like so. Then we take Beastbox here. We rotate his arms, put him in an I surrender pose, and then flip him upside down and combine the two of them together. Into their unified form of Squawkbox. He is a little bit top heavy due to the way the head is designed. We'll stand him back there against the wall so he quits falling. Bring the camera up just a little bit. Now, of course, for his weaponry, you'll take Squawktalk's guns and attach them by their fins onto his wrists. And then on the holes that are on there, you will attach Beastbox's guns. And there you have it. Now he's standing good. So we'll back up a little bit here. There you go, folks. You have Squawkbox, their combined form. As you might suspect, the articulation is basically in the arms. In this mode, you can rotate the arms all the way around like so, and of course you can spread his legs out, doing a full splits at the hips, or even at the knees if you wish. And that's pretty much it for him. Now, of course, this was a nice feature that was even promoted on the card here, as you can see. They've got him dead center, and of course, we got here on the side, now with a double transformation. Transforms from cassette to animal and back, combines to form robot. So this was a nice gimmick, and yes, the Autobots did get one as well. The last Autobot cassettes of Grand Slam and Rain Dance would be combined to form Slam Dance. Slam Dance, of course, has gotten a modern release in the Siege toy line. He is part of the Autobot Alpha Strike set that is an exclusive to Amazon. But all he is a repaint of Skytread. So he loses the cassette mode, but still has the tank and airplane modes. At any rate, this toy also sold back in the day for $5 at Children's Palace. I vaguely remember Children's Palace. There used to be one here in the area I lived at. It's now a Value City Furniture. Now, while it's nice that they include stuff here to show us that we get a robot, and on the back we get instructions. As you can see, the top one's for Squawktalk, and then Beastbox. And then we get stuff for how to build the robot. But as you see, we only get 2 tech specs. We get nothing for the robot. By the way, this group was worth $1 robot point. But thankfully, there is stuff about him listed in the More Than Meets the Eye guidebooks. They list Squawkbox's function as battlefield dissonance, and his motto is, "One being's noise is another's music." The two of them combined together seem to form an impassioned Decepticon musician. He loves to hear the sound of music, which goes along with Squawktalk's love of hearing speech. Now, while he loves to listen to music, other Decepticons are put off by his music, but his commanders have found that his bad music can be used as a battlefield distraction to the Autobots. So while that makes him very happy on the battlefield, as not only can he record the sounds of his music, he can also record the tormented screams of the Autobots that are forced to listen to it, to keep it in mind for future compositions. The combination of his guns plays a big role in it, as the sonic decibel guns of Squawktalk will be his speakers, combined with the compressed air cannons of Beastbox. Gives him a rather interesting weapon, but unfortunately it's also very little of use. While he can create a disorienting and physically damaging sound show, he's also physically weak in offensive capabilities. So if any of them are able to tune him out and avoid his blasts, they could get close enough to cause serious harm to Squawkbox here. Plus, there's also the fact that when Squawkbox really gets going in his musical compositions, he has a tendency to just start blasting in every direction. So he's sometimes just as much of a threat to his allies as he is to his enemies. Alright, now we'll take a look at the two official tech specs. We'll start with Squawktalk first. As you can see, we got pictures of both characters, and they're done in purple to show they're Decepticons. The pictures, of course, match, sort of, the pictures on the front of the box. Squawktalk's is reversed, but otherwise is the same. Squawktalk is given the function of translator, and his motto is, "If you have nothing interesting to say, say it anyway." Never stops talking except to refill his fuel tank. Knows over 250 Earth and 6,300 alien languages, but never has anything important to say in any of them. Other Decepticons often threaten to rip out his vocal circuitry and wrap it around his beak to shut him up. Which is slightly tamer, as in the More Than Meets the Eye guidebook. It's listed in the personal data tracks from Dirge that he is going to kill Squawktalk if he doesn't shut up. Carries two deafening, high-decibel sonic boomers. Combines with Beastbox to form Squawkbox. Now we'll put the decoder here over his stats, and as you can see, the grid marks don't go very high. It gives his strength as 3, his intelligence is 5, his speed is 6, his endurance is 5, his rank and courage are both 6, his firepower is 5, and his skill is 8. So he's pretty good at his job, but most of his stats are very disappointing. Moving on down to Beastbox, it gives his function as interrogator, and his motto is, "Speak now if you intend to ever speak at all." His violent temper often overcomes his natural curiosity, more willing to whittle down his captives with his fists than with his words. Few survive his interrogations long enough to reveal anything useful. So you see, that makes him even worse than Laserbeak. Can record up to 6,000 hours of testimony, and I doubt he's ever used even remotely a quarter of that. Equipped with 2 compression cannons which crush a target with tons of compressed air pressure. Combines with Squawktalk to form Squawkbox. And then now to put the decoder over his grid, and as you can see, he's got a little bit better bars. It gives his strength is 7, his intelligence is 5, his speed is 3, his endurance is 6, as is his rank, his courage is 7, his firepower is 4, and his skill is 3. So, looks like that means he may be slightly better than Laserbeak at interrogation. Just not very much. Now we get down to my thoughts. What do I think of Beastbox and Squawktalk? I think there are a couple of interesting characters. Beastbox certainly is a step back on the interrogation function from his predecessor, Vortex. So we might have been better off making him an enforcer or a thug rather than another interrogator, as that pretty much gives us 3 characters on the Decepticons that functioned in interrogation. And in reality, out of those 3, the one that's not a cassette is actually the better one at it. So I think they should have given him something else instead. As for Squawktalk, I've always found him to be an interesting character. In his guidebook for the collecting of Transformers, Mark Bellomo often regards that it was a shame that the cartoon was canceled so early, as Squawktalk might have been a humorous character added to the cartoon. It might have been funny to see how many different ways Megatron or Galvatron would have come up with to silence him. The only downside is that they might have played this up too much for laughs, whereas the More Than Meets the Eye guidebook explains it in a better way that takes away a lot of the comic relief of it. Whereas he's just a character that's obsessed with language. And of course, when you're a translator, you have to have some interest in foreign language. The only problem is Squawktalk abuses the privilege by constantly talking. The new gimmick of combining them into a singular robot is a nice idea, as it does expand their play value a little bit, and we get a bonus character on top of it as well. The only downside is that Hasbro couldn't be bothered to even make the card a little bit bigger so that we could get some vital statistics and a little bit more about what Squawkbox could do. We had to wait several years for these More Than Meets the Eye guidebooks to come out to get even a rough idea as to what in the world he does. So while it did leave our imaginations open to interpretation, I don't think any of us came anywhere close to guessing that this is what he was capable of doing. All in all, I think their deficiencies are outweighed by the goodness of them. So I'm going to barely eke Squawktalk and Beastbox into the top tier, primarily because of this mode here. Their combined mode is excellent and has a rather unique function on the battlefield. So that makes him an interesting addition to the Decepticon lineup. Individually, both guys would be hard to even put in the top tier, to be honest with you. Squawktalk definitely earns middle tier status at the very least. I mean, as a bird, he's got limited usefulness, but he does have a unique function that would be vital to the Decepticon cause. As if they happen to stumble across any ancient ruins or whatever, Squawktalk's ability to translate long-forgotten languages and such would come in handy. As let's face it, with his extensive library, you gotta figure some of those are languages that are likely not used anymore in any parts of the world or even in the galaxy. So it would be nice to have somebody around that could figure things out like that. Beastbox, however, by himself, he's not much more than a bottom tier character. I mean, as a gorilla, you would expect him to be able to look like you could position him like a real gorilla. And you can't. It's impossible, and make him look half decent at it. That, and again, his function of interrogator, he's really not that good at it. I can understand kids getting him if they got into this late in the collection. That way they'd get at least somebody that could interrogate. But if you had Vortex or even Laserbeak, they already could do the job. So it seemed like he was better suited for being a thug or an enforcer rather than an interrogator. But combined together, Squawkbox definitely takes the top tier slot by being an interesting character and a unique addition to the Decepticon army. So definitely, if you want either of these guys, I'd say go for both and put them together in the combined form. Now, hopefully Hasbro will come up with a way to bring these guys back into the Siege line and make it a nice homage to this classic toy. And that concludes my review of the Decepticon cassettes Beastbox and Squawktalk, along with their combined form of Squawkbox. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked this review, drop me a thumbs up here on YouTube. If you're new to my channel, please hit the subscribe button down below and join up in our ranks. And also ring the bell so you'll be notified when I post new content. Also, please consider sharing your thoughts about these guys in the comments down below. This is Sparkster1701 saying I will catch you all later.